For over a decade, Sergeant Dana Whitmore had been the face of trust and order in Pine Hollow, Texas, a quiet, conservative town where everybody knew your name, your pastor, and probably your business too. She wasn't just respected, she was admired. A 39-year-old mother of one, wife to a local mechanic, and the only female sergeant in the Pine Hollow Police Department, Dana had built her reputation brick by brick. She'd grown up in the next town over, graduated top of her academy class, and never once had a disciplinary mark on her record. Folks around here called her a real straight arrow. She didn't drink. She didn't curse. She always wore her badge clean and polished, like it meant something. And to her it did. But in the early months of 2024, something about Dana began to shift. Before things began to unravel, Dana Whitmore was more than just a sergeant. She was the standard. At age 25, she was the first woman to join the Pine Hollow Police Department in over a decade. The locker room jokes, the skeptical stares, the whispered bets on how long she'd last. It was all part of the initiation. But Dana outworked, outshot, and outlasted every one of them. By 30, she had cleared more cases than anyone else on the force. By 34, she made sergeant, first female to do so in Pine Hollow history. But behind that record, behind the crisp salute and the clean badge, was a woman constantly holding her breath. Even as a girl, Dana had always carried weight that wasn't hers. Her mother was a school custodian who worked nights. Her father disappeared when she was 8, off to Louisiana, last they heard. Dana helped raise her younger brother, juggled 2 part-time jobs while putting herself through the academy. There was never time for doubt, never room for failure. She didn't chase love in her 20s, didn't take vacations. While her friends were getting married and starting families, Dana was pulling doubles and drinking lukewarm gas station coffee at 2 a.m., watching headlights on country roads. When Clint Whitmore came into her life, it wasn't a whirlwind romance. It was quiet, steady, simple. He fixed her cruiser after a breakdown and asked if she wanted sweet tea while she waited. She said yes. They married in the fall of 2010. No big ceremony, no honeymoon, just a backyard barbecue and a borrowed white dress. Dana loved Clint. At least she tried to. But as the years passed, something subtle settled into their marriage. Not resentment exactly, but resignation. Clint didn't understand the burden she carried. Didn't understand the nights she came home silent after knocking on a door to tell a mother her son was gone. Or the days she testified in court and had to relive the worst things she'd ever seen. When Noah was born in 2012, Dana thought motherhood would fill a part of her she'd kept hollow for so long. And for a while it did. She'd wake early to make pancakes shaped like bears, braid as tiny curls, whisper stories about police heroes and the power of truth. But soon, the job pulled her back. Long shifts, missed birthdays, emergency calls at dinner. She told herself it was worth it, that the world needed protectors, that her son would be proud. But somewhere along the way, Dana started to fade. The quiet moments became unbearable. The house felt colder. Conversations with Clint were reduced to schedules, bills, groceries. He loved her in his own way, steadily, distantly, but never deeply. And Dana, for all her strength, was still human, still a woman who wanted to be seen. She never told anyone, not even Marla Gaines, that she cried once in the squad car after writing a report on a child abuse case. She never said how hard it was to smile at church after arresting a deacon the night before. She never admitted that some days she felt like a ghost in her own life. So when the changes began, the tardiness, the wrinkled uniform, the faraway look in her eyes, they weren't signs of rebellion. They were signs of a storm quietly building inside her, a storm waiting for the right trigger. At first it was subtle. She'd arrive late to morning briefings, her uniform a little wrinkled. She stopped volunteering for extra patrols. Colleagues noticed she wasn't as sharp on the radio. Her voice softer, more distracted. Her husband, Clint Whitmore, shrugged it off. "She's just tired," he'd say when neighbors asked why Dana didn't show up to the Sunday barbecue or skip church 3 weeks in a row. "The job wears you down." But Sheriff Bob Langston, a tough, by-the-book man in his 60s who'd mentored Dana since she was a rookie, he wasn't convinced. He'd seen that look before. The 1,000-yard stare. The mind somewhere else. And somewhere else it was. Dana had started disappearing during her lunch breaks, driving out beyond the gas stations and cow pastures, sitting in her cruiser with the engine running, windows up. Not even the dispatchers knew where she went, just as she turned her radio to silent. Something, or someone, was occupying her mind. And whatever it wasn't good. What the good people of Pine Hollow didn't know, what no one knew, was that behind the steel gaze and polished boots, Dana Whitmore was hiding a secret that would unravel her career, her family, and ultimately take her life. But it hadn't started that way. It started, as these things often do, with a second chance. Or, more precisely, a man she'd once arrested. A man the state had just released and assigned to her for supervision. 5 years earlier, Germaine Cole had been nothing more than a name on a file folder. Just another small-time hustler moving pills and powder between Houston and Austin. Dana had caught him during a routine traffic stop off I-45. One cracked tail light, one nervous smile, and suddenly 17 kilos of oxycodone were in evidence lockup. Germaine went down easy. No foot chase. No resistance. He even flirted with her while she was cuffing him. "You ain't gotta be this rough, Sergeant," he had smiled, flashing a gold tooth. "You might break my heart." She didn't laugh. She never did. That arrest earned Dana a departmental commendation. Germaine, meanwhile, earned 7 years in state prison. End of story, or so she thought. But in early 2024, word came down from the state capitol. Germaine Cole had been released early. He'd cut a deal with the feds, turning a couple of higher-ups in a local trafficking ring. Now, as part of his supervised release agreement, he'd been relocated to Pine Hollow under the state's reentry initiative. And who better to monitor his reentry than the officer who'd arrested him? Germaine Cole had spent the better part of 5 years behind concrete walls, where the days bled into each other and the nights brought nothing but echoes. He wasn't a violent inmate. In fact, most of the guards called him low maintenance. He kept to himself, read more than most, and never once got written up for fighting. But staying quiet didn't mean staying idle. Germaine watched, listened, and learned. He figured out who ran what corners, who the snitches were, and more importantly, who was going home early. The system, he realized, didn't reward good behavior. It rewarded usefulness. So when the Fed started circling one of the bigger crews from Houston, guys Germaine used to move pills for, he made a decision. He flipped. The names he gave weren't small. They brought down 3 mid-level traffickers and shut off a supply line that ran straight through Harris County. In exchange, a reduced sentence. No press. No courtroom drama. Just a quiet release through the state's reentry initiative. But the day he got the news, Germaine didn't celebrate. He sat alone in the prison library that night, tapping a pencil against the table, thinking back to the woman who had arrested him. The one who didn't smile. The one with those steady brown eyes and the cleanest badge he'd ever seen. Sergeant Dana Whitmore. He never forgot her. Not because she locked him up, but because she was the only person who looked through his charm. The only one who didn't flinch, didn't flirt back, didn't play the game. In some twisted way, he respected that. And when his lawyer told him he'd be transferred to a small town under supervision, and that the state might assign him to someone familiar from his case history, Germaine smirked. "You think she still works there?" he asked. "Oh," the lawyer replied, flipping through his file. The cop, Germaine said. The one who caught me. He didn't say her name. He didn't have to. Her image was etched in his mind like ink on skin. That night, in his bunk, Germaine stared at the ceiling and thought about how 5 years could change a person. Maybe she had a desk job now. Maybe she got married. Maybe she softened up. Maybe, just maybe, she was vulnerable in ways she never let on before. Germaine wasn't stupid. He knew the game. He'd watched men on the outside manipulate women in power before. Parole officers, social workers, even a warden once. But Dana? She wasn't the type, which, in his mind, made her the most interesting kind. By the time he packed his few belongings into a plastic bag and boarded the transport van for Pine Hollow, Germaine had already rehearsed what he would say. Not in a predatory way, at least not openly, but in a calculated, patient way. Not aggressive, not too familiar, just attentive. He wasn't going to chase her. No, that would never work. But he'd be there, polite, present, the man who'd changed, the man who'd grown, the man who noticed things others didn't. He remembered the way she always parked facing the exit, the way she rolled up her sleeves to the elbow, never higher, the slight limp in her left step after she got out of her cruiser, the hazelnut coffee. Germaine stored it all like ammunition, because while the state thought they were giving him a second chance, he saw it as his first real opportunity. Sheriff Langston called her into his office. You know the case. You know his record. Keep it clean and procedural. No room for personal baggage. Dana nodded once. Yes, sir. But when she met Germaine again, face to face after 5 years, something shifted. He looked different. Older. Sharper. The street clothes were gone, replaced with a plain collared shirt tucked neatly into jeans. His smile was the same, though. I didn't expect to see you again, he said, extending a hand. Still the toughest cop in Texas. Dana didn't shake it. I'm here to do my job, Germaine. That's it. I respect that, he said quietly. But if it makes any difference, I'm not the same guy you arrested. She didn't believe him. Not fully. But over the next few weeks, Germaine kept showing up, on time, polite, clean drug tests, always saying the right thing. His charm was subtle, nothing overt, just the kind of low, smooth conversation that made you feel seen. Dana never smiled during their meetings, but she stopped checking her watch. And one day, he brought her coffee. Just one. Hazelnut, he said. You used to order it from the gas station across from HQ, remember? She froze. How did he know that? I noticed. Back then, at home, Dana found herself staring longer in the mirror. She started curling her hair again. She changed her perfume. Clint noticed, but didn't say anything. He just rolled over in bed each night and went asleep facing the wall. She told herself it was harmless. But in a small town like Pine Hollow, secrets don't stay buried for long. And Dana Whitmore, respected, decorated, trusted, was already one step into a line she swore she'd never cross. The first time it happened, it was raining. Dana had just finished her shift, 10 hours in the patrol car, back aching, phone buzzing with texts from a husband she no longer talked to. She pulled into the back lot of the Silver Pines Motel, the kind of place most cops kept on their radar for drug deals and cheap affairs. Germaine was already there, standing outside room 6, hands in his pockets. Hood up. They didn't speak. She walked past him, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. It wasn't planned. At least that's what she told herself later. But once the door clicked shut behind them, it became something else, desire laced with danger, the kind that coils around your chest and makes you forget who you are. It wasn't love. Not yet. It wasn't just sex. It was something in between, and it didn't stop there. Over the next 2 months, the meetings became regular. Tuesday nights, Friday afternoons, always in different places, back roads, his cousin's garage, even the police cruiser once, parked deep in the woods off County Road 72. Dana still went to work, still wore her badge, still made arrests. But something behind her eyes had changed. Officer Marla Gaines, her closest colleague, noticed. Dana was quieter, moodier, distracted. During a domestic call one afternoon, she completely missed a suspect reaching for a knife. Marla had to step in and disarm him. "You all right?" Marla asked later. "I'm fine," Dana snapped. Later that evening, as the station emptied out, Marla found Dana alone in the locker room, sitting on the bench with her head in her hands. "Hey," Marla said gently, pulling off her duty belt. "You scared the hell out of me today." Dana didn't look up. "I said I'm fine." "No," Marla replied, voice firmer now. "You're not. And I've known you too long to pretend I don't see it." A long silence stretched between them. Then Dana exhaled slowly, rubbing her palms together like she was trying to erase something invisible. "I've made a mistake," she said softly. Marla sat beside her. "Is it something you can fix?" Dana shook her head. "It's already gone too far. I don't know who I am anymore, Marla. I used to be the one who never slipped." "Everyone slips," Marla said. "But you've always had a rope. You just have to reach for it." Dana turned to her then, eyes glassy, lips parted, but the words never came. Instead, she stood, grabbed her keys, and walked out. Marla sat alone for a while, staring at the locker Dana left ajar. A small gut feeling curled in her chest, quiet but persistent. She would later call it intuition. But at the time, it just felt like the beginning of goodbye. But she wasn't. And soon, it wasn't just her instincts that dulled. It was her boundaries. One night, after leaving Germaine's motel room, she forgot to remove her department-issued body cam. Thankfully, it had never been turned on. But the risk? It was getting real. And Dana knew it. At home, Clint grew more distant. He stopped asking where she was. Stopped waiting up. He began working late at his garage, sometimes sleeping there. Their son, Noah, barely saw them in the same room. The marriage, if it could still be called that, was unraveling quietly. No shouting, no broken plates, just silence. Clint Whitmore wasn't a poet, but even he could feel it. The slow death of a marriage not with fireworks, but with absence. At first, it was little things. Dana stopped cooking Sunday breakfast. She left her patrol boots by the door for days. Her uniform hung half-wrinkled on the back of a chair, untouched until morning. Clint was no fool. He wasn't highly educated, didn't read emotions like novels, but he had gut instinct, the same one that helped him diagnose a faulty transmission just by sound. And his gut had been screaming for months. He remembered lying awake one night, Dana's back to him, the ceiling fan casting slow, rotating shadows across their bedroom. He wanted to ask her what's going on. Who is he? But the word stayed stuck in his throat like a splinter he couldn't dig out. Instead, he rolled the other way and waited for sleep to claim him. By then, Clint had started sleeping at the garage more often. He'd work late, close the bay doors around midnight, and throw an old blanket over the recliner in the break room. His employees didn't ask why. Neither did Dana. And Noah? Noah was 12, old enough to sense tension, but too young to name it. He stopped asking why his mom didn't make it to his school concert. Stopped leaving her notes on the fridge like he used to. He started locking his bedroom door. One night, Clint knocked and asked if he wanted to watch the ball game together. Noah replied through the door, "Maybe another time, Dad. I got homework." There was no homework. There was just hurt, passed down, absorbed, unspoken. Clint thought about asking Dana for counseling once. He looked up a number, wrote it down, folded it into his wallet. But he never dialed it. Part of him believed she was just stressed. The job had done that before. Maybe it was hormones. Maybe she was going through something personal. But deep down, another part of him, the part that knew her better than anyone, sensed that she was disappearing. Not all at once, but in inches. One morning, he stood at the bathroom sink brushing his teeth when he noticed something strange. Her perfume bottle was different. The scent was too floral, too new. Dana had worn the same scent for years. Warm, cedarwood clean. This one felt unfamiliar. That was the moment he knew. Not from anything she said, but from everything she didn't. And he hated himself for what came next. Not anger, not even heartbreak. Just a heavy, dull acceptance. He stopped fighting. He stopped asking. He let her go, long before she was ever truly gone. And Dana? She had a secret locked in her chest. One she hadn't told a soul. She'd missed her period. Twice. She drove 2 towns over to buy the pregnancy test. Paid in cash. Took it inside a roadside diner bathroom. 2 pink lines. Bold. Unmistakable. She stared at the result for nearly 10 minutes. Numb. This wasn't part of the plan. Hell, there was never a plan. She drove for hours that night. Past the familiar county roads. Past the blinking gas station lights of rural Texas. Past the last open diner on Route 61. Her hands gripped the wheel until her knuckles turned white. She wasn't thinking about Germaine, or Clint, or the badge she still wore. She was thinking about the tiny flicker inside her, the one that had changed everything without warning. Dana pulled into a rest stop just shy of Houston and sat there with the engine running, staring out nothing. For the first time in years, she cried. Not a silent, composed sob, the kind she allowed herself on tough days, but a deep, guttural weeping that shook her ribs. She wasn't supposed to be this woman, the one who made reckless choices, the one who let lust unravel her entire life. She had spent her whole career being the example, the one who followed every rule, gave no excuses, let nothing slip through the cracks. And now, she was pregnant by a man she was supposed to supervise, a man with a criminal record, a man who had already begun to tighten his grip around her life like a vice. She pulled her phone from the console and opened the contacts. Her finger hovered over Marla Gaines, but she didn't press it. She thought about calling the clinic right then, booking the appointment, ending the problem before it grew a face, before it grew a heart. Would anyone blame her? Would anyone know? Back in Pine Hollow, the answer was yes. They'd know. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but secrets didn't survive long in a town with 2 traffic lights and 1 grocery store. And Germaine? He'd find out eventually. And if he didn't approve, she'd already seen flashes of the man he used to be. She didn't want to see him unmasked. The next morning, she called a private clinic in Houston using a burner phone. She gave them a fake name, Kelly Walters, and set an appointment for the following Thursday. The days crawled. She wore looser clothes, avoided eye contact at work. She skipped breakfast, not from nausea, but from guilt. Every time she looked in the mirror, she didn't see herself. She saw a woman she used to judge, a woman on the edge. When Thursday came, she almost didn't go. But by 10 a.m., she was already on the highway. The clinic was quiet, clean. The receptionist didn't ask questions. The doctor looked at her once, nodded, and handed her a clipboard. Take your time. In the exam room, Dana sat on the paper-covered table, legs swinging. The walls were too white, the air too cold. When the ultrasound began, she turned her head to the side, refusing to look. But then, softly, the technician said, "There's the heartbeat." Just 4 words. But they broke her. Dana turned to the screen. The shape was vague, the sound faint, but it was real. Alive. She told the technician she needed a moment alone. And when the door clicked shut, Dana placed her hand on her stomach and whispered something no one else would ever hear. "I don't know how to protect you, but I'll try." She left the clinic with the sonogram in her pocket. She didn't cancel the appointment officially, just vanished from the schedule. It was the first promise she made as a mother, and the only one she wouldn't get to keep. That night, Dana didn't go home. She checked into a roadside motel an hour outside Pine Hollow under the name Jenna Wallace. The room smelled of bleach and air freshener. The walls yellowed with time. She sat on the edge of the bed, the sonogram photo in her hand, and pulled out the motel's notepad. And for the first time, she wrote a letter. Not to Clint, not to the sheriff, but to the life growing inside her. I don't know who you'll be, or if I'll ever get to see your face. But tonight, I need to believe you're real. I need to believe you came to me for a reason. The words bled from her like confession. She told the unborn child about her regrets, about the badge that felt heavier each day, about the nights she drove with no destination just to escape the silence at home. She didn't name Germaine, not directly, but she described the way her heart betrayed her logic. I always thought strength meant saying no, but maybe real strength is living with a yes. She folded the letter and tucked it inside the sonogram envelope. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, whether she'd keep the child, whether she'd have to lie for the rest of her life. But in that motel room, under flickering light, Dana allowed herself something rare: hope. Just for one night. Just for them. What would the department say? What would Clint do? What would the sheriff think? But there was one question louder than the rest. What would Germaine do? Because if Dana had crossed a line, she was now standing on the wrong side of it entirely. And with every secret she buried, something darker was already digging its way out. Dana waited nearly a week before telling him. It was after one of their usual meetings, this time in the back of an abandoned storage shed outside the city limits. The sun was setting over the Texas plains, the air thick with summer heat and silence. Germaine was pulling on his shirt when she finally spoke. "I'm pregnant." He froze. No jokes, no grin, just a long, hard stare. "For real?" he said, voice flat. Dana nodded, arms crossed over her chest. She didn't know what she expected. Concern? Excitement? Regret? But what she got was cold calculation. "How far along?" "About 9 weeks," she whispered. He sat on an old workbench, staring at the cracked cement floor. "That's not good," he muttered. "Not good at all." Germaine's mind spun. 9 weeks. That meant it started almost from the beginning. He pressed his palms into his knees, trying to steady himself. The air in the shed felt thinner now, the summer heat turning into something suffocating. He wasn't angry. Not yet. What he felt was something worse, trapped. This wasn't part of the plan. He'd spent 5 years calculating his way out of prison, flipping on his old crew, playing the quiet game, pretending to reform. The last thing he needed was a complication that bled into the rest of his life. But even as panic bloomed in his chest, a strange image flashed in his mind. Dana, standing in uniform, holding a child with his eyes. For half a second, something tightened in his throat. Then it passed. He wasn't that kind of man. He didn't believe in starting over or building something real. He believed in survival, in leverage. And right now, that baby was both a threat and a weapon. He couldn't afford to lose control. Not over her, not over what she carried. If she turned on him, everything could collapse. Parole, freedom, reputation. So he stood up slowly, cold calculation replacing whatever flicker of emotion had tried to rise. He needed to lock this down. Fast. And he knew just how to do it. Dana's stomach turned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Germaine looked up, his eyes darker than she'd ever seen them. "Do you know what happens if this gets out?" "To you?" "To me." He stood pacing. "You lose your job, your badge, your kid. And me? I go back inside. You think parole gonna smile on this?" Dana felt a chill crawl up her spine. "I'm not gonna tell anyone," she said. I needed you to know." He stopped pacing, walked up to her, placed both hands on her arms. Then, slowly, he leaned in close and whispered, "You better not." From that day forward, something in Germaine shifted. He became more controlling, more intense. He started texting her constantly, demanding to know where she was, who she was with. He'd show up unannounced at her patrol stops, wait outside the station in his cousin's car, eyes hidden behind tinted windows. He'd never hit her. Not yet. But his presence became a noose tightening around her neck. Dana tried to distance herself, skipped a few meetings, didn't return his calls. But Germaine always found a way to reel her back in. One night, she came home to find a note tucked inside her mailbox. No envelope, just folded, handwritten. If you go cold on me again, I'll burn everything down. You, your job, your family. That same night, she found Clint sleeping on the couch with an empty whiskey bottle beside him. Their son, Noah, was locked in his room with his headphones on. Dana walked into the bathroom, locked the door, and threw up. Whether from the pregnancy or the panic, she couldn't tell. A week later, she made an appointment at a clinic in Houston. Not a hospital, a private OB-GYN that didn't ask many questions. She used a fake name. Sat in the waiting room, wearing sunglasses and a hoodie. She didn't go through with anything that day, but she came close. Back at the station, Sheriff Langston called her into his office. "You've been off lately," he said. Slower, distracted. "You want to talk?" Dana shook her head. "Just personal stuff, sir. I'm handling it." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. But as she left the room, he added something she never forgot. "You know I'd go to hell and back to protect my officers, Dana. But I can't save someone who's already drowning." And Dana Whitmore? She was drowning. In lies. In fear. And in something far more dangerous than either. A man who knew too much and had nothing left to lose. Friday, August 2nd, 2024. The day started like any other in Pine Hollow, Texas. The sun climbed over the church steeples, kids biked past the diner, and Clint Whitmore stood alone in his kitchen pouring burnt coffee into a chipped mug. The clock read 7:26 a.m. Dana hadn't come home. At first, he wasn't worried. She worked out hours, sometimes patrolled late, but she always sent a text. Always. This time, nothing. He tried calling. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Still nothing. By 8:15, his hand was shaking. At 9:03 a.m., a 911 call came in from a cattle rancher off Highway 14, reporting an abandoned police cruiser parked along the fence line. "I didn't want to touch nothing," the man told dispatch. "But the window's cracked, and there's a smell." Deputies arrived 10 minutes later. The cruiser was parked neatly on the grass, engine off, windows up. A faint metallic scent hung in the air. No sign of struggle. No blood. Inside the driver's seat, slumped forward against the wheel, was Sergeant Dana Whitmore. Still in uniform. Still wearing her badge. Dead. The initial assumption? Medical emergency. Maybe a heart attack. Maybe heat stroke. It was Texas in August, after all. But when the coroner arrived and examined her body, the story began to change. There were faint bruises on her neck. Subtle, but unmistakable, consistent with manual strangulation. Her phone was missing. So was her department-issued body cam. And in her file pocket, a sonogram photo. 8 weeks, 5 days. Tiny, fragile, tucked inside a receipt from a Houston clinic under the name Kelly Walters. News spread through Pine Hollow like wildfire. The sheriff's department lowered the flags. Locals dropped flowers at the station door. Churches lit candles. Dana wasn't just an officer. She was family. But as the town grieved, Sheriff Bob Langston didn't cry. He locked himself in his office, pulled out her personnel file, and stared at the most recent entries. And then he picked up the phone. Pull every video from the last 2 weeks. Body cams, dash cams, traffic cams, motel security, clinic entrances, I want it all. And find out who the hell Kelly Walters is. At Dana's home, Clint sat on the porch with his head in his hands. Their son, Noah, hadn't spoken a word since the sheriff gave them the news. But later that night, when Clint finally walked into Dana's closet looking for her old jacket, he found something tucked deep behind her winter coats. A black notebook, unmarked, filled with handwriting. He flipped to the last page and read the final sentence she ever wrote. If anything happens to me, look at Germaine. By Monday morning, Pine Hollow wasn't just grieving, it was on edge. Sheriff Bob Langston stood behind his desk, staring at a wall filled with surveillance stills, call logs, and printed text messages. Coffee untouched, tie loosened, his eyes bloodshot. For 20 years, Dana Whitmore had been his pride. Now he was chasing ghosts through the life of a woman he thought he knew. The investigation moved fast, too fast for a town this small. First came the security footage from a gas station 2 towns over, captured just 6 nights before Dana's death. A woman in uniform pulling into the parking lot. Moments later, Germaine Cole exiting the passenger side, hoodie up, glancing around. No crime there, but no explanation either. Next came the clinic records. Kelly Walters was an alias. But the address? A P.O. box rented under Dana's badge number. When the technician pulled the files, the ultrasound image matched the one found in Dana's cruiser. 8 weeks, 5 days. Unmistakably hers. Then came the biggest break. Her phone. It was found 3 miles south, tossed in a drainage ditch along County Road 72. Smashed, yes, but not beyond repair. The techs at the state lab worked through the night. And when they cracked it open, what they found was damning. Hundreds of text messages with Germaine Cole. Some flirtatious, some graphic, and then, in the final days, dark. You don't own me. You promised you'd be there. If you tell anyone, you're done. I'll bury you. The last message sent from Dana's phone, timestamp 10:42 p.m. on August 1st, just hours before her death, was only 3 words. Please don't come. Sheriff Langston called for Germaine's arrest the same afternoon. They found him at his cousin's trailer, shirtless, playing dominoes, like nothing had happened. He didn't run, didn't resist. He simply stood, nodded once, and said, "Took y'all long enough." At the station, under bright lights and cold silence, Germaine refused to say a word. Not to Langston, not to the DA, not to the lawyer assigned to him. He just sat with a blank stare, unmoved, unapologetic. But they had enough. Between the text threats, the clinic alias, the video footage, and the notebook entry Dana had written, "If anything happens to me, look at Germaine," the sheriff was convinced. Pine Hollow was about to witness the biggest trial in its history. And for the first time in years, Sheriff Bob Langston felt no pride walking into the courtroom. Only a cold, bitter promise. He would get justice, no matter how ugly it got. The courthouse in Pine Hollow, Texas, had never seen a crowd like this. Locals filled every pew. Reporters lined the back walls. Outside, camera crews camped on the lawn like it was national news, which by now it was. State versus Germaine Cole. Charge, first-degree murder of Sergeant Dana Whitmore and her unborn child. The trial began on September 23rd, just 52 days after Dana's body was found. Germaine pled not guilty. His attorney, a sharp-tongued defense lawyer from Houston, argued that the relationship, while inappropriate, was consensual, that Dana was emotionally unstable, that her death was a self-inflicted tragedy caused by shame, pregnancy, and professional collapse. He even floated the idea that Dana may have taken her own life. The courtroom gasped. Sheriff Langston didn't blink. The defense attorney, Carlton Miles, leaned on the podium like a preacher selling redemption. His voice smooth, deliberate, calculated. He painted Dana as a woman unraveling under pressure, a model officer who cracked under the weight of secrecy, shame, and an unplanned pregnancy. She was terrified, he told the jury, not of Mr. Cole, but of what this town would do to her if they ever found out. Her career, her marriage, her son, it was all slipping through her fingers. He pointed to the sonogram. "This isn't motive for murder," he said. It's a cry for help that no one heard. And then he turned to the notebook. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't deny the relationship. But a note that says, look at Germaine is not a confession. It's not evidence. It's emotion, a reaction, one written by a woman in turmoil. We don't convict people based on fear. We convict them based on facts. His words landed hard, not because they were true, but because they were rehearsed. The courtroom murmured. Reporters scribbled furiously. One woman in the second row wiped her eyes. Another scoffed under her breath. Outside the courthouse, opinion was split. Some saw Dana as a victim, seduced, trapped, and ultimately discarded. Others whispered doubts. She was a cop, one man said. She should have known better. The media latched on like vultures. Phrases like forbidden affair, baby in blue, and Sergeant's secret lover flooded headlines. But inside the courtroom, the truth pressed on. Next, the prosecution called Dr. Ellen Vickers, a behavioral psychologist from Austin who specialized in emotional coercion and power imbalance in law enforcement environments. Her presence changed the room. She walked to the witness box with calm, no-nonsense precision, adjusted her glasses, and spoke clearly. Based on the communication patterns, message tone escalation, and behavior exhibited by Mr. Cole, she began. There is strong evidence of psychological manipulation. This was not a relationship of equals. She pointed to the earlier messages, calm, flirtatious, seemingly respectful. But over time, she continued, we see the introduction of control tactics. Jealousy, isolation, threats, the use of pregnancy as leverage. He escalated pressure as her emotional and professional vulnerability increased. The defense objected, speculation, but the judge overruled. Dr. Vickers continued, in cases like this, victims often remain in the relationship out of fear, shame, or hope for redemption. The moment Dana tried to break away, the threats intensified. This is classic emotional entrapment. And when the pregnancy became real, so did the risk for him. Her final words cut through the silence like a blade. This wasn't just murder. It was the silencing of someone who knew too much. One juror, a mother of 3, visibly trembled. Another folded his hands and stared hard at Germaine. He didn't flinch, just stared ahead, as if the words bounced off him like rain on glass. The prosecution rested, and for the first time since the trial began, it didn't feel like a court of law. It felt like Judgment Day. Then came the prosecution, and they came armed. Exhibit A, the sonogram found in Dana's cruiser, proof of a pregnancy Germaine didn't want. Exhibit B, the recovered text messages, growing more threatening as the due date approached. Exhibit C, surveillance footage of Dana and Germaine together the night before her death. Exhibit D, the notebook, her handwriting, the final line. If anything happens to me, look at Germaine. It was the emotional blow that nearly brought the jury to tears. Then came the witnesses. Dana's friend and fellow officer, Marla Gaines, took the stand. She testified that Dana had confided in her, without naming Germaine directly, but made it clear she was afraid. She said, he's not who I thought he was, and if this gets out, it'll destroy everything. Then came the medical examiner. She confirmed the bruising on Dana's neck. Manual strangulation, she said. No doubt. Germaine didn't testify. Not once. He sat stone-faced through every accusation, every tearful recollection. No remorse. No denial. Nothing. Just silence. On October 6th, at 3:47 p.m., after just 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Guilty of first-degree murder, infanticide, the unlawful killing of Dana's unborn child. When the judge read the sentence, life without the possibility of parole, Germaine blinked for the first time in days. He turned to the gallery, eyes scanning the crowd. And for a moment, just a moment, he smiled, a bitter, twisted smile, like a man who'd lost everything, yet still thought he'd won something. The room erupted in grief. Clint Whitmore dropped his head into his hands. Young Noah sat beside him, clutching his mother's badge in his palm. Sheriff Langston stepped outside into the evening air, lit a cigarette, something he hadn't done in 20 years, and whispered, "Justice isn't supposed to feel this damn empty." After the verdict, the town of Pine Hollow tried to go back to normal, but nothing really did. Dana Whitmore's name was etched into a plaque outside the police station, in honor of service and sacrifice. Her locker was left untouched for 6 weeks, and every morning, Sheriff Bob Langston passed it without saying a word. At home, Clint Whitmore did what men like him often do. He shut down. He sold the house, closed the garage, packed up Noah, and moved to Abilene, where his sister lived. Some say he never spoke of Dana again. Others say he kept her badge on his nightstand until the day he died. The town put together a scholarship fund in Dana's name for young women pursuing law enforcement. The first recipient was a girl named Monica Fields, 18, who had grown up idolizing Dana since she was a kid. But Dana's legacy didn't stop at a scholarship or a plaque on a wall. Years later, in a small police academy outside Abilene, a young cadet stood during roll call, broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed, with a calm, steady presence that felt eerily familiar to those who once knew his mother. Noah Whitmore. He didn't talk much about what happened. When asked why he wanted to join the force, he simply said, "Because someone once told me the badge should mean something." He carried Dana's badge in his locker every day. Never wore it, just kept it close. On graduation day, the sheriff who pinned the new badge on his chest paused for a moment. "You got her fire," he whispered. Noah nodded, eyes damp but unshaken. "I got her scars too," he replied. And as he walked off the stage, a hush fell over the room. Not of sadness, but of respect for the boy who became a man in the shadow of loss and chose to stand in the light anyway. "I want to wear the uniform like she did," Monica said, holding back tears at the dedication ceremony. "I want to be brave like her, but I also want to know when to walk away." As for Sheriff Langston, he retired the following spring. No press conference, no party, just a folded flag and a final walk through the department halls. He left behind his badge, his keys, and a note taped to his old desk drawer. Not every badge stays shiny. Some carry shadows. And Germaine Cole? He was transferred to a maximum security facility outside Huntsville. He spends 23 hours a day in a cell, with no visitors and no one writing him letters. His name barely gets mentioned anymore. But every once in a while, when the air turns heavy and the town feels too quiet, someone will say it. That's the man who killed the only good thing this town had. Dana's grave sits under a willow tree in the northern cemetery. 2 names are etched into the headstone. Sergeant Dana Lee Whitmore, a mother, a protector, a light. Baby Whitmore, never forgotten, never born. Because in the end, this wasn't just a story about love turned toxic, or about a woman who broke the rules. It was a story about how loneliness can wear a badge, how secrets can grow louder than sirens, and how even the strongest among us can fall, not from weakness, but from needing to feel seen just once by someone who looked back. If this story moved you, made you think, or left you speechless, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Push and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Bell, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss another real story that hits this deep. Envelope, thank you for being part of this growing community where stories matter, and truth always finds a way.